Pick a food, any food, your absolute favorite food in the entire world, the one you could eat every single day and never get tired of. Now imagine eating only that, nothing else. No variety, no substitutes, no cheat days, just that one food for every meal for the rest of your life. How long do you think you would last before your body started quietly falling apart? The answer depends enormously on which food you picked. And the results are so strange, so counterintuitive, and in some cases so medically alarming, that scientists, historians, and at least one very determined Australian man have spent a surprising amount of time figuring this out in ways that range from fascinating to deeply concerning. Let's start with the most dramatic failure mode possible, because it is also one of the most historically significant. For centuries, long-distance sailors faced one of history's most brutal dietary experiments, not by choice. Extended ocean voyages meant months without fresh food of any kind. No fruit, no vegetables, just preserved meat, hardtack biscuit, and whatever else could survive months at sea without refrigeration. And slowly, reliably, terribly, many of these sailors would begin to fall apart in a very specific way. Their gums would swell and bleed. Their old healed wounds would reopen. Their joints would ache. Their teeth would loosen. Their skin would bruise at the lightest touch. In severe cases, they would die. The disease was called scurvy, and it was caused by the complete absence of a single nutrient, vitamin C, something the human body cannot produce on its own and absolutely cannot survive without for more than about 1 to 3 months. Here is what makes vitamin C so critical and so easy to lose. Vitamin C is the raw material your body uses to build and maintain collagen, the structural protein that holds your tissues together. Skin, blood vessels, bones, gums, all of it depends on a continuous supply of collagen to stay intact. Without vitamin C, your body's ability to produce new collagen collapses. Old collagen breaks down and cannot be replaced. Your body essentially starts to structurally fail from the inside, which is why scurvy produces such a spectacularly awful list of symptoms. You are not just getting sick. You are literally coming apart at the seams. The tragedy is that the cure was so simple. Fresh citrus fruit, containing modest amounts of vitamin C, was enough to reverse scurvy in most patients within days or weeks. Sailors in the 18th century, including those on voyages led by explorer James Cook, dramatically reduced scurvy deaths by carrying lemon or lime juice on board, even before anyone fully understood why it worked. The British Navy's eventual adoption of lime juice for sailors is also the origin of the slang term limey, still used as a nickname for British people today, though the connection to near death by vitamin deficiency tends not to come up in casual conversation. So lesson 1 from our experiment. If you only eat one food and that food does not contain every essential nutrient, you will eventually develop a specific deficiency disease that targets whichever nutrient is missing. The timeline varies, but the outcome doesn't. So lesson 1 from our experiment. If you only eat one food and that food does not contain every essential nutrient, you will eventually develop a specific deficiency disease that targets whichever nutrient is missing. The timeline varies, but the outcome doesn't. Now here is something that might surprise you. There are a small number of foods that come surprisingly close to covering most of your nutritional needs, and they are not the foods most people would guess. Eggs are often cited as one of the most complete single foods available. They contain high-quality protein with all essential amino acids, healthy fats, vitamins A, D, E, and K, most of the B vitamins, and meaningful amounts of iron, zinc, and selenium. The significant gaps are vitamin C, which eggs contain essentially none of, and carbohydrates, which eggs also lack almost entirely. A person eating only eggs would likely develop scurvy within a few months, and would also find it difficult to sustain energy levels without any carbohydrate source. Still, the egg comes closer to a complete solo diet than most foods. Breast milk is technically the most nutritionally complete single food in existence for humans, specifically designed by evolution to support complete human development during the most critical phase of life. But it is, for obvious reasons, not a practical long-term diet for adults, and it is also not vitamin D sufficient without sunlight exposure, which is why pediatricians recommend vitamin D supplementation for breastfed infants even today. Now here is where things get genuinely interesting, because some foods come surprisingly close to covering almost all your nutritional needs on their own. And one food in particular has had entire civilizations essentially bet their survival on it: the potato. For most of the first half of the 19th century, roughly 1/3 of the population of Ireland depended on the potato as their near-exclusive source of calories. Not as a preference, as a necessity shaped by poverty, land policy, and the remarkable fact that a potato-based diet, humble as it sounds, can sustain human life more completely than almost any other single crop on Earth. White potatoes contain all 9 essential amino acids, the building blocks of protein that your body cannot manufacture independently. They provide fiber, potassium, magnesium, vitamin B6, and a modest but meaningful amount of vitamin C. They are also extraordinarily calorie-dense per unit of land, which is a large part of why they became so central to subsistence farming across Europe. If you had to pick one crop to keep a population alive, the potato makes a surprisingly strong argument for itself. But a potato-only diet will still kill you, just more slowly and through different deficiencies than scurvy. The key gaps are vitamin A, which the body needs for vision, immune function, and skin health, vitamin B12, found almost exclusively in animal products and critical for nerve function and red blood cell production, and fat-soluble vitamins in general, since white potatoes are extremely low in fat, and many vitamins require dietary fat to be properly absorbed at all. The Irish population's historical vulnerability was not just economic. It was written into the biology of their near-exclusive diet. When potato crops failed in the 1840s due to a water mold disease called Phytophthora infestans, causing the Irish famine, the nutritional margin that had kept millions of people alive on a single food vanished almost overnight. About 1 million people died. Another million or more emigrated, and the lesson about depending entirely on a single food source became etched into agricultural policy for generations afterward. Now here is the part of this story where a very recent person decided to test the potato's limits voluntarily, on purpose, with full medical supervision, because apparently that is something people do in the modern world. In 2016, an Australian man named Andrew Taylor from Melbourne decided to eat nothing but potatoes for an entire year. Not for poverty or historical necessity, but to address a serious food addiction that he described as having similar psychological patterns to alcoholism. He called his project SpudFit. He started a YouTube channel about it, and he ate potatoes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 365 days straight. He ate both white and sweet potatoes, which together covered more nutritional ground than white potatoes alone, since sweet potatoes contain beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A. He also took a vitamin B12 supplement, acknowledging that this was genuinely not available from potatoes at all. He ate as many potatoes as he wanted, never restricting quantity, just variety. He had regular blood tests throughout the year under medical supervision. The results were, depending on who you ask, either impressive or deeply concerning. Taylor lost over 100 pounds during the year, going from 334 pounds to somewhere around 220. His cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar all reportedly improved. He felt, by his own description, genuinely good, more energetic, less depressed, and free from his compulsive relationship with food. Nutritionists who commented on his experiment were not enthusiastic. The primary concern was protein, since white potatoes are quite low in it, and prolonged low-protein intake forces the body to break down its own muscle tissue to meet its amino acid needs. A diet extremely low in protein can also affect brain chemistry, since several neurotransmitters are built from amino acids. Taylor's nutritional outcome was likely better than it should have been precisely because sweet potatoes added nutrients white potatoes lacked, and the sheer volume of potatoes he consumed, reportedly around 8 to 9 pounds per day, gave him more raw nutrition than a typical portion of the same food would. So what is the actual answer to the original question? What happens if you only eat one food? If you pick something nutritionally rich and varied, like potatoes plus sweet potatoes, you can survive for longer than you might expect, but deficiencies will still catch up with you over time without careful supplementation. If you pick something nutritionally limited, like white rice, white bread, or processed food of almost any kind, deficiency diseases will arrive faster and more severely. If you pick a food that is missing a single critical nutrient, vitamin C, vitamin B12, vitamin A, Your body will start showing you the consequences in ways that ancient sailors, historical famines, and modern medical case reports have all documented in considerable detail. The human body is not built to run on simplicity. It evolved over millions of years, consuming hundreds of different foods across different seasons, locations, and climates, building a metabolic complexity that genuinely needs that variety to function optimally. The closest thing to a single food that could theoretically keep you alive the longest with the least supplementation would probably be a combination of potatoes and sweet potatoes, with a B12 supplement, because Andrew Taylor essentially ran that experiment for us, survived it, and lost 100 pounds in the process. But your absolute favorite food almost certainly isn't that. And that ultimately is probably for the best.